Hey guys, how you doing? Another video from inside my apartment. It's raining outside again today, so thought, what the heck. Um, the big news going around is the Trump-Biden election. Um, I, if you're not convinced that American politics is strictly theatrical by now, like, I don't think there's anything that's going to convince you. Um, People walk away from the debate and they're just appalled and disgusted that Trump, he's just talking over and he's interrupting, and can't we talk about the issues and let Biden talk, and then you can talk and take turns. And Chris Wallace even takes a moment to address it, and Trump just interrupts him, and it's just a catastrophe and all this kind of stuff. um and the thing that my background is theater, right? I used to do a lot of stage management, and you can just turn people's mics off, right? It's not disrespectful, or it's not any of that kind of stuff. Like, if you want to organize a debate and you want to have one person speak for 2 minutes, and then you want to give it to someone else and you want to have them speak for 2 minutes, you can turn off people's mics so that they simply cannot talk, right? Like, you can do that. They've chosen not to do that. There's a reason they've chosen not to do that, because at this stage in the game, the only position that the powerful have left is confusion and disarray, right? They can't actually have people actually debating and actually making points and trying to counterpoints and trying to uncover, you know, uh, 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 uncover solutions or have reasonable discussions about anything, right? Because if anybody were to have an actual reasonable discussion, the only logical conclusion that you could come to is that capitalism is complete failure. Like recently, Richard Wolff and Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff had a debate, and Peter Schiff uh, is a free market capitalist fundamentalist, right? Like, he is an interesting figure because he understands, like, he admits that what's happening is ridiculous, and the whole system is collapsing. He's not like a sociopath like Kevin O'Leary is, who thinks that what's happening is absolutely wonderful and that the impoverishment of people just means that they need to work harder. He actually says, like, no, this is bad. Like, what's happening is really bad, and it's going to lead to the devaluation of the dollar, and it's going to lead to further collapses, and things are going to get really bad for lots of people. Um, but his solution is more capitalism. His solution is this sort of a utopian idea that, oh, well, what we need to do is get government out of the way, right? And of course, Richard Wolff, who's a Marxist economist, is right to point out that scapegoating the government when free market capitalists have bought the government is a cop out. It's just a way to pretend as though the capitalist system doesn't generate corruption in the government, right? Uh, and of course, Schiff, as a free market fundamentalist, right, he can't actually come to grips with that. He can't actually accept that, oh, it's because of free market capitalism that people can be bought. And so at the end of the debate, you're just left with this kind of sense of, like, oh, like, Schiff hits a barrier, right? He hits a wall. But that's a discussion, right? It's a discussion that happened, and it was an interesting one. And I really advise people to go see it. And so that happens on RT television, where ideas seem to actually be happening, where people are actually having discussions about things. Um, but the powerful don't want that, right? The powerful are fine with having someone like Donald Trump and people like Joe Biden just kind of bicker at one another and absolutely resolve nothing, reveal nothing. Like, this small shred of something that came out of this, and I think the thing that will start to snowball and become a bigger deal, is that Trump was asked explicitly if he will condemn white supremacy, and he didn't tell these people to stand down. He told them to stand by. And this, of course, by these alt-right radical fascists, is taken like they're giddy about this. They're happy about this. And it just flows into the regular problem that American politics has, which is that they can never discuss class issues. Everything needs to be wrapped up around issues of race, because though that's safer for the ruling class, right? If you can make significant headways on racial inequality, or if you can appear to look that way, um, then everything's gravy for you, right? And if people are willing to just bob their head along and go along with it and continue working for you while celebrating the hard effort that you take, trying to resolve the racial inequalities that exist in your society, uh, then great, right? You get to be a billionaire and do no work and be worthless and do nothing, while everyone slaves away and works their life away for whatever petty, asinine bullshit you have on the table. The And of course, if the conversation were, and this is something that is happening in the American conversation, is if people were to start actually pointing out that uh, racial inequality and wealth inequality are twinned, right? Those are twin problems that exist at the same time, and you can't really resolve one without the other. Um, and the powerful don't want to have that conversation. They certainly don't want to have it on a major national stage. They certainly don't want presidential candidates talking about that at all. And because you can't have rational discussion and you can't actually face the problems that are that the populace are dealing with, you end up with this ridiculous nonsense show, right? It's just like a WWE match. That's all. It's just two idiots shrieking at each other. And it's designed to be that way. And why do I know it's designed to be that way? Because you could shut down their mic. You could literally just shut off their mic, right? Joe Biden, you have 2 minutes. Donald Trump's mic is off, right? You could do that. It'd be easy to do. It would be childishly easy to do. But there's a reason they don't, right? Because they don't want to actually have to put forward arguments. They don't want the populace to actually see arguments put forward in the first place. Because once you start putting forward actual arguments about why people can't have health care, why people can't have a basic income, why people can't have a reasonable structured society, why wealth inequality needs to be more grotesque than it's ever been in the history of mankind. Why do we need to have such heavy nuclear proliferation? Why do we have to have such heavy military interventionism? If you actually have to put forward those arguments, then those arguments can be defeated. And so they're just not going to put the arguments forward at all. They're just going to have two men baby talk at one another, and that'll be considered American politics. And it's not going to get different. It's not going to change, right? Like, if you think it's going to change, you're deluding yourself, right? Like, after this presidential election, there's going to be another figure who's equally as repugnant and equally as bad come out of the GOP, right? He's going to do the same kind of stuff, and he's going to and they're going to offer no solutions, and they're going to offer no arguments even, right? Because again, if you actually offer arguments, then those arguments can be defeated. So they're not going to. Why would the corporate state want to provide anything for the populace to actually be able to talk back against, right? And so the strategy is just babble, just chaos and nonsense and babble. It doesn't. And they'll never actually put forward a cogent argument. They'll never actually put anything forward, because they know they are morally reprehensible and that the populace sees them as they are, which is a sociopathic. They understand that. I mean, how could you miss it? Like here in Canada, like we're heading into our second wave here, and it's becoming really obvious that we're not going to do lockdowns. We're not going to do anything, and the paid trolls, their talking point is a lockdown. Oh well, a lockdown will hurt small businesses, and big business will just make more money, so we shouldn't do it, right? So you should trade your lives for small businesses, is really what they're saying. Of course, this is just a complete concession that the system is broken, right? So we're going to go into a lockdown, and uh, it's just going to give the wealthy an opportunity to make more wealth for themselves and to make the society worse, because capitalists are sociopaths by nature and don't actually have the moral compass or the compassion or the empathy to help the populace. And so they'll just gut the working class people and the working class small businesses and walk away from the table after reaping their harvest. And this is what people are saying in defense of there being no lockdowns, right? This is how deluded we've gotten, that we're not willing to actually say, like, that's a broken system. Like, that's broken. We need to lock this down. We need to restructure this economy from the ground up. From the ground up. Because we should never have to consider even the opinion of rapacious sociopaths. It just shouldn't be a thing. Like, they should be barking their insanity off in a corner, and we should go, okay, buddy, and walk away. And it shouldn't matter to us at all what these sociopathic murderers think, right? Like, they shouldn't be part of the conversation whatsoever, but they are. Because we've structured the society to give all of the power to them, even though they do nothing, just act as parasites, siphoning away our productivity into these offshore accounts where they do nothing. They help no one, and in fact, they're hurting everyone. And we can't even do a rational thing like put the society in lockdown without considering what they think or what their feelings are. And it's ridiculous. It's insane. And I'm going to go to work tomorrow. And I'm going to go to work every single day through this second wave of the pandemic and put my life at risk so I can sell toys to children. Like, I'm like, it's reaching this insane point where it's so clear. Like, our leadership is just steadily taking the mask off. Just steadily just taking the mask off and just being like, yeah, we're fascist. What are you going to do about it? And like in the States, like, Donald Trump is a fascist, without a doubt. But the delusion surrounding Joe Biden as if he is not also a fascist is weird. Like, that's where it gets weird. Like, don't get me wrong. Trump has this like cult of personality around him, and he has followers rather, who will, like, if he says go to Virginia and fuck people up in Virginia, they'll go. Joe Biden doesn't have that, right? He's not actively using like citizen militias in order to suppress people, right? When no, he uses the regular military for that in like large scale operations, like he and Obama did against Occupy Wall Street, right? Which is much less chaotic. The and this is only going to get worse. Like, that's the thing about it, is it only gets worse. Like, the like, once this coronavirus thing is over and done with, should that moment ever come, and like, yeah, more people will die, but those are sacrifices we're willing to make for the corporate capitalist state, clearly. The And once the corporate capitalists have had their blood sacrifice, right? Well, now here's climate change. And what's so sad and depressing about all this is, like, this is just a taster, right? This is just a taste of how the corporate sociopaths are going to act when food shortages begin. When the food shortages begin, right, it'll be mask off. It'll be completely mask off. They'll just let people starve. They'll retreat into their mansions and into their gated communities where they'll have armed guards protecting them. And they'll be well fed. Just take a look at what, like, Donald Trump's $750 tax return, right? Like, that's a big piece of news. Right? These people don't pay taxes. They don't do anything. Like, you definitely pay more taxes than they do. right? And yet they're the ones pounding on the pulpit talking about taxpayer rights, right? Like people like Doug Ford don't pay taxes. People who are in positions of power don't pay taxes. They bribe political officials to structure the tax code so that they don't have to pay taxes, right? Because there's short-sighted children, because they can't perceive anything outside of their own, like literally in their development they got to me want as a baby and were never told that they couldn't have it, and so that's where they stopped, and they've never developed past that point. Just me want, me want. And these are the people who are electing into positions of power. And it's getting just harder and harder to want to participate in this, to like get out of bed and go to work and do a good job and do work that I'm proud of doing. It's getting harder and harder because we should stop participating, right? Like the populace should go into, like, we should be in lockdown, we should be in general strikes. We should be not participating in this. We should be locking the society completely down, like completely down. With no, and our negotiation point should be eliminate the capitalists. Like that's what our demand should be of our political class. And we should be rallying around people, and we should be supporting people, and we should be talking about how do we get rid of these capitalists. I know exactly how. You can do it in a day, right? Transfer the shares of every single business to the workers. Transfer the shares of every organization to the workers. And you're done, right? Just eliminate these capitalists. They're worthless. They provide no value. And and they just parasite onto the side of societies, and then they call themselves job creators. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like these worthless middlemen who do absolutely nothing. And we should get rid of them. I mean, this Donald Trump, Joe Biden debate shows that beyond the shadow of a doubt. Like, these are the capitalist leaders. Capitalism is a dead ideology, and it needs to go away. And here's the thing, is that capitalism does go away. Capitalism is a system that destroys itself, right? And so we can either get rid of it by choice, looking at one another and saying, okay, transitioning away from this complete heaping pile of disaster shit is going to be tough, but we need to do it together, and so we're going to. Or we can just wait for the thing to explode and pick up the pieces afterwards, which is going to be significantly worse. And of course, I think is exactly what's going to happen. So the only thing that you can do is look to your neighbors and look to the people who are around you, to try and be honest with the people you work with, and try to be honest with those you live with and around. And just try to make a way through it, honestly, and support one another with as much love as you've got. Because you're not going to get any of that love from your leaders. They're there to exploit you. And they're doing it very well. What will we say to our children when they start to ask us why we did nothing? Alright, guys. Good luck out there. Say hi to your neighbors. If you made it here and I didn't depress the shit out of you, or maybe if I did depress the shit out of you, just like, share, subscribe. Do your best.